En midnattskväll då solen går ner, vi hör en röst så klar. Den kommer lite
Welcome back,
närmare,
everyone,
låter
to
så
the
underbar.
American Girl Talk
Den sjunger en
podcast.
hälsning om ljus och
It's a
frid,
podcast that
om
hasn't
flickorna
quite
tittar
figured out its
ut.
opening
Flätat hår i
phrase
långa
yet,
kjol och
but
blomster i
the
hud.
long story short of it is Celia and I are rereading the American Girl doll books, and we are analyzing them for you, our beloved audience of tens. Just, to get some girl talk in, to talk about some girls of historical periods who faced historical traumas. Right now, we are
A lot of
covering
them.
Kirsten Larson. Yes, a lot of trauma. We're covering Kirsten Larson, the little Swedish girl. And we are today coming to you with book 3, Kirsten's Surprise. So I'm Caroline, and this is Celia. Celia, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I love the holidays. So, talking about any holiday, and a little bit of scary snow, always going to get me excited.
I know, and for like a peek behind the curtain, everyone, which is risky because who knows when this will actually come out. But we're recording this on Halloween, and the book is a Christmas book. So we're just like bashing out the holidays one by one in one
And
fell swoop
that's what we like
today.
to. We like to bash them out. We like to bash those holidays together as much as we can.
We do, because what's scarier, as we learned in this book, than Halloween, than almost dying on Christmas?
Then almost dying. I think it really brings the gratitude back to your life. You might be thinking, I'm not grateful for a lot. I'm not thankful for my life. Go get stuck in a snowstorm.
See how it feels with your ungrateful, rude papa, You could learn a few things about yourself.
Yeah, do you hate your father? Are you mad at him? Take him on a snow expedition.
So my synopsis of Kirsten's Surprise is Kirsten gets tunnel vision about retrieving trunk, which contains her only friend, Sorry, and nearly kills herself and Papa in her single-minded drive to get it back.
That's pretty the core of it. The Christmas is an afterthought. Or Christmas is an afterthought.
And from now on, I went for this episode, we are going to refer to the trunk as just trunk because it has surpassed just being an object, and it has become much more than that, I feel like, in this book. I mean, we were introduced to trunk first in book 1. We talked about a little bit in book 2. And now kind of the culmination of the trunk experience comes to us in book 3.
I will say, I think we talked about it earlier, but it is funny to wait, so long, I'm going to say, but like 2 books to address why that trunk isn't there. That is, as it is revealed, actually full of a series of significant items, in my opinion.
We'll get into it, as we like to say. But
Yeah.
it does feel as though trunk was incredibly important and just kind of neglected for no particular reason.
Just like inconvenience. The inconvenience was insurmountable for so long that it became a crisis.
I think trunk became one of those, when you put off like a task that you could have done easily, and it just becomes more and more daunting the more you think about it. Like, I'm moving in a week and I haven't packed a lick of things yet. And I could start today, but I decided to record a podcast. And I think Papa is kind of proverbially recording podcasts instead of picking up trunk.
Absolutely. Papa is the average millennial woman of his time, I suspect.
Yeah, but before we get into the book, I want to kind of get your feel. Now that we've read 2 Kirsten books, what do you feel about book 3? Like, how is Kirsten doing for you?
I'm much more interested in her now. I feel like she's developing a personality. I feel like she's becoming a person. First 2 books, I was like, okay, let's get it over with. Things keep happening. I feel like I'm getting a sense of her. I'm seeing her grow. So I'm a little more invested. I'm excited to see her birthday, the lesson she's going to learn, the other things.
The changes for Kirsten?
The other haunting changes that will happen to this poor Swedish girl. But yeah, I'm definitely more in on it.
Yeah, I felt like the first 2 were kind of boring. Like, we were kind of like, oh, Kirsten's in school. Oh, Kirsten's friend died of cholera. Boring.
Yeah.
But I did feel like with this one, we got a little bit more of Kirsten's personality, and there was a little bit more drive. I guess there was a big event, there was
something
adventure
to work for.
Oh, Kirsten's gonna save the day too. I forgot.
That's right. There are still
That's one of the stories.
more things
she has
she's
to save the day. Mm-hmm.
I feel like she could have saved the day.
I think she did save the day here.
She's kind of always saving the day, if you think about it.
She's
not for singing bird, but she
Or
couldn't say that
Marta.
day. Maybe that's why she feels so motivated to solve problems around her. Because people keep leaving her and abandoning her. She can't keep people in her life that aren't her immediate family.
So she must fix problems. No, I agree. I think like this book, I also think, I remember I said in the first episode, I think that I wasn't sure if I had read the other Kirsten books besides the first two. I don't think I did. I have an incredible memory, and I didn't remember a lick of this. And so the fact that nothing came back to me makes me think that I didn't read this one, which makes me think the rest of the books are going to be kind of fun too, because neither of us have read them.
Just the thrill of the unknown.
Yeah, just we're on the same adventures, Kirsten. We're living Kirsten's life. No one has any forethought.
Two blonde women living out
Talking to another blonde woman?
reality.
It's gonna be crazy. It's
more likely than you think.
The answer might surprise you. All right. Well, we're gonna get into it now. So we're gonna do a little play-by-play of the book for you, as we've done in the previous 2 episodes. But again, who knows who's listening to this? So I'm just giving you. If you want to jump in on Kirsten's surprise, that's kind of the layout. We talk about the
Then you're here.
And you're here. We're all family. So we start with chapter 1, Pestering. So it's wintertime now, and Kirsten's mom is like baking goods. It smells cinnamony. It smells nice in the house. But Kirsten like can't really focus on that because she's like, "Hey mom, when are we getting Trunk?" And mom says, "I don't know." Mom says, like I would love to get Trunk too. A lot of my valuables and a lot of the things that I hold dearest to me, memories, heirlooms of my family are there, but Dad's busy. And so mom and Kirsten kind of lament that they can't get Trunk, and they would love to get Trunk, but Papa right now has like a litany of excuses.
He's got a lot of chore on farm to do.
And yeah, so Kirsten the chapter is called Pestering because guess what? Kirsten is pestering.
Oh my God.
In a way, only an 8-year-old girl can pester, which I did appreciate. Sari is looking sadder by the minute. Mama offers like, well, why don't we make Sari a little loaf of bread? And it points out that Sari is basically like
the ugliest
soft stuff with grain.
Yeah. Yeah, is like falling apart. Her insides are spilling out on the table. And Kirsten's like, yeah.
I do feel bad for Kirsten because there's nothing else to entertain her, and everyone else has dolls, and she just has this limp sock that she's supposed to like. She's old enough to have object awareness or object permanence. Obviously, she's 8, but she has object permanence, something we gain by the time we're 2.
I think
so.
A
It's
lot.
not like she's fooling. It's not like she's fooling herself with little Sari being not real Sari. And I don't know. The whole kind of little Sari thing just always makes me laugh too, because it just feels kind of fucked up in a way that it's like, oh, this is not real Sari, but this is little Sari. It's like
it's that, and it's like, well, are we keeping this other one around? Like, once we get the doll back, or is it truly just like, well, snack for bird once my doll is back?
Oh, I don't think little Sari's staying anywhere after this. I think
it's a grim future for that doll.
But so Kirsten basically is excited for Christmas, but not really because of not having everything she wants. And so she's excited for Christmas, except she's not really, because she just really wants Trunk. And she mentions to Mama, yeah, let's get Trunk back. And Mama says, oh, I'd love to, but Papa doesn't want to. And so Kirsten goes outside. Mama's like, oh, wait, do not mention this to Papa. He's super stressed and he'll be so angry. And Kirsten says, I will not. She immediately goes outside and says, so what about that Trunk we have in?
So, hey, got me thinking again.
And Papa says, I'm too busy. We've got so many chores to do. But one of the chores he lists they have to do is they have to stuff clay into the walls. And that feels, like we were saying earlier, kind of like a chore that's just an excuse chore. Because I feel like
yes,
any old person in that house could stuff the clay into the walls. It doesn't feel the most pertinent. And it kind of just feels like Papa just doesn't want to take the long drive into town and keeps coming up with, like, busy work to, like, prevent him from doing this trip.
Yes. I will say At some point, it mentions too that it took him and Uncle Olaf, a whole week to repair the fences around. And here's the thing. Here's my beef with that chore. This is like early America, right? I don't think they're like that close. My understanding from the first book, they're not that immediately close to another person that it's so important their land be marked out with these fences. It's also about to snow. So I'm a little like, the whole fence needs to be fixed like now. I know they have pigs and like livestock, but I guess I feel like maybe we make a smaller pen so that fence chore doesn't take so long.
Well, it's also just like, no offense, but how many
No
people are living on this
offense.
farm? No offense. But how many people are living on this farm? Kirsten has an older brother who's probably like, I think he's like 13, which is way past the time he should be working in this century. He has a younger brother who can stuff clay into walls. She's got two
Yep.
cousins. She's got Mama and she's got Aunt Inga. And no one else is like doing any work except for Uncle Olaf and Papa. Like, no one else can help do any of this. Like, you can't have Mama and her brother, I forget his name, her older brother go to the town together, like a strapping young man and Mama. Like, we could have done this.
It feels like
It
any
just
combination. Because, I mean, Kirsten says that her and Mama also know how to drive the wagon.
And they said that it's heavy, but can't just a man in town, like a strapping young man in town, have them loaded on, and that's the only thing. That's the only thing
Also,
two women can't do.
Literally, they're talking like to the shopkeeper.
Yeah, and he can't just
There's
like
a
help.
man. It couldn't be like Mama and the man got out on the sleigh.
The thing that I thought maybe was the reason
Whatever.
that we don't have Trunk yet is they mentioned that Kirsten's brother Peter's whistle is in Trunk. And if you ever had a little kid with like an instrument before, that could be kind of lack of motivation to go get Trunk, is they don't want Peter whistling all day, you know?
Yeah, it does feel like probably Kirsten brought that up at some point, and Mama and Papa were like laying in bed and they were like, do not go get that goddamn trunk. We can't survive the whistle again. That whistle could not be in this tiny house where we have a sheet separating our bedrooms.
With Mrs. Winston upstairs whistling all night.
Yeah, the old 19-year-old grown woman.
So we kind of wrap up chapter 1 with no conclusion. Kirsten's just a pest. She's just pestering Papa. He's like, don't get me angry, you know, because Papa's fun. And Papa hasn't been a whole dud on this entire series since we started reading this book.
I have one more opinion to share really quick. Can we talk about the fact that, like, this is the first time Kirsten also recognizes her mother as a complex and emotional human being, but basically just because she wore her down to the point of, like, reliving her. She's like, wow, don't you want your dead mother's card or a shawl? Wouldn't you feel happier if you saw her, like, needlepoint work again in real life? And then her mother gets, like, emotional, like, remembering, like, the olden days and, like, the homeland. And then Kirsten's like, wow, I didn't think Mama was going to be upset about this.
Let's say Mama's like 38, right? Remember how the past 38 years you've lived in Sweden with your whole entire family around you, and now you're in a foreign frozen tundra with just me?
With nothing. With just your daughter making little doll bread next to you while you do real chore.
And your husband, who is angry all the time, won't let you get your trunk with all your mom's belongings in it. Doesn't that make you feel mad, Mama?
Isn't that
and
cool?
She's like, oh shit, Mama's
like,
crying.
Maybe. So that was my only other thought I have on this.
No, that's valid. Mama does not have much for personality except being sad and acquiescing to
Sick.
Papa. You know?
Yeah.
Sad, sick. Just like every good pioneer woman should be.
Absolutely. We're always saying that.
But so then we have chapter 2, A Crown for a Queen. So the first thing I want to point off right off the bat in this chapter is they're playing with dolls in like the crawl space of the barn.
Mhm.
And they mention like very, very like upfront in this chapter book that you cannot dress barn cats in doll dresses. They talk about how they have like the dolls and they're playing with them. And they said that there's basically the book says, oh, and the barn cats are around, but you cannot dress them in doll dresses. And this felt just like a weird kind of, sometimes American Girl doll does this, where there will be like a sentence that is fine in the context of the book, but it also feels like, why was that put in there?
It's like when you take a creative writing class in college and you're with somebody who just has to take it for the credit. So they're just adding in miscellaneous details thinking that it's world building, but you read it and your only thought is essentially, why did you tell me this piece of information? Why is the cheese on the counter important? But they really thought it was.
Now, Celia, as our resident cat owner, have you ever dressed a cat in doll's clothing?
Not in doll's clothing, but certainly like a Build-A-Bear t-shirt. Yes. My parents had a kitten she's still alive now, but she was a kitten 2 years ago. And I put her in like a little Christmas dress. She looked adorable. Here's the thing. I know that there are animals that enjoy being dressed. I have never owned an animal that you could put an outfit on and they'd be happy. I put Hattie in things. Hattie hates it. There's no costumes for Hattie. So, yes. I think the thing is you have to like shove them into them as a kid or when they're a kid to get them like used to it.
To get them
So
used
when
to the
they're
concept?
Yeah, so then when they're an adult, it's the same thing with like leash training. Like you cannot start that at like 1 with a cat. It's got to be like, okay, this is my kitten. This kitten is in an outfit or on a harness every day. Then you
I
can
just
have
can't
a
imagine.
dress-up cat.
I'm not a cat person, and I can't imagine. They're so like slippery to me. Like a dog is made of solid material, kind of. Like it's easy to
Okay.
dress a dog whether they like it or not because just like
Yeah,
they just can't
shove their
slip,
feet
you know?
in.
You just grab them. Like when I dress my foster dogs, it's like putting
Yeah.
a coat on a little kid. You just like grab their little hands and you like wrap it around them. They might not like it, but they can't do anything about it. I feel like with
Yeah.
cats, the way they move, I can't fathom holding a cat, I guess, for me personally. So dressing a cat is the furthest thing from my like ability to understand pets.
I understand. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough bargain. Also, you'll get scratched. And I know that they just didn't have the medical acumen to treat an infected cat scratch.
Oh my God,
So
if one of these girls got scratched, they'd get like gangrene or something like that.
it'd be
Like
bad.
staph.
It'd be bad. That's like, it's over. You're done.
We can't lose Lisbeth to Calico. That'd be bad.
No. Maybe that might, well, we don't know. We haven't finished the books yet.
Well, she's not
That
friends
might
with
have-
Kirsten necessarily, so
Yeah,
she's not
that's
gonna
true.
die. Until they're true friends and not
They
just
have a-
obligatory cousins.
They don't have a friendly relationship enough yet. They kind of told her, they're like, yeah, you can hang out in the barn with us, but like, don't put a dress on our cats.
It is interesting though. I know we joke about it, but like she never does call her cousins her friends.
I think she doesn't understand the concept. Marta died and the concept of friendship died with her.
What about Singing Bird?
I mean, she's not like around anymore.
That's true. But so with her cousins, non-friends, Kirsten's like, you know what? I'm so excited for like St. Lucia's Day. And her cousins ask her, what is St. Lucia's Day? And Kirsten is shocked they don't know what St. Lucia's Day is because it's her favorite part of the Christmas holiday. And it's just weird that these American Swedes don't know it to Kirsten. And so she's like, oh, I can show you about St. Lucia's Day. It's this beautiful day where the girls do hard labor in the morning. And you get up at 4 a.m. and you cook breakfast for everyone in your family. And you get to wear a little white dress. And she does have the cool wreath with the candles on it, which is, I feel like, very iconic Kirsten.
Always
And-
wanted one as a kid.
I know. I was like, what holiday
Those
is that?
little
Get me in
candle
on
hats,
it, you know?
Right?
Candle hat? Like, what could go wrong?
That seems
10-year-old?
pretty cool. Yeah, a child should be trusted with an open flame near a plant.
So, St. Lucia's Day is a real holiday, obviously. They didn't make it up. But I had an Italian exchange student stay with me when I was in high school. And I think the Italian version of St. Lucia's Day may be slightly different than the Swedish version because the way I was told St. Lucia's Day happens is, so St. Lucia, as all saints, had a horrible death, right?
Of course.
Her eyes were gouged out of her head. So, in the Italian version of St. Lucia's Day, she she is like a specter who walks through your house with her eyes in like an ashtray, basically, and she's led by a donkey. Again, I am saying this from memory. I did not re-look this up. Yeah. So she's an eyeless woman holding her eyes in one hand and a donkey in the other to lead her.
In your house?
Yeah, she's in your house. If you're good, she leaves you like a treat, like socks or something. But if you're bad, she throws hot embers at you. And this doesn't sound
Okay.
fun to me.
No. No. Same thing with being woken up by a child in a sheet in the middle of the night.
At 4 a.m. and be like, breakfast is served.
I read this. I said a little girl in a costume walking around in a gown in the dark is how ghost stories come to pass. So I think it adds something that's the version of her lore that you know. Because I feel like it feeds into my fear of a child appearing in my home with a flame on their head and being like, come eat this food.
You think all ghosts are little Swedish girls walking around your house?
I don't think all ghosts are, but certainly generally holiday ghosts are little children coming into my home and pulling a prank.
That would make sense for the Christmas Carol. You know,
Right? I'm saying.
the first ghost,
Ghost
the
of
ghost of
Christmas
Christmas present. Past? Oh, yes, it's past. It's just a little Swedish girl.
Well, I don't know which one is a child. Yeah, that one feels the most right. Because present's got to
Yes.
be somebody who's like haunted from your past.
The present is the jolly ghost, the big one. He has like a catchphrase.
Oh, he's just separate. That's why it's always a trick question about how many ghosts there are in A Christmas Carol.
4.
Mm-hmm.
We did that the other day, actually. We had that trick question at us. What does he say? Know me better, man. That's what he says. I don't know what it means, but I kind of like it.
I like it. I like that you knew it. That's
I was just
important.
thinking, because I really like the Muppet version of that movie.
The Muppet version's good.
It's
We should make
better
more
than
Muppet
good.
versions. This should be the Muppet version of the American Girl dolls.
Oh, I would love that. Miss Piggy could be all of them.
I would kind of like to see it.
We can run it by them once this podcast goes viral.
Yeah. Once this goes viral, we'll go, hang on, Mr. and Mrs. American Girl, boy, do we have a pitch for you.
Have you considered collaborating with Jim Henson's Muppets?
Have you thought about bringing the Muppets back in a way nobody is looking for except for us?
Nobody.
Nobody yet.
But yeah, there are no Muppets so far. There's just St. Lucia. And there's not even St. Lucia because Kirsten's St. Lucia costume is stuck in
Trunk.
And so Kirsten and her cousins are thinking that maybe it would be great to celebrate St. Lucia's Day and surprise everyone. And Kirsten like volunteers, yeah, we'll just have to get Trunk back. Which we know at this point that Trunk is not on anyone's priority list except for Kirsten's. But this whole costume, this whole event hinges on Trunk. And it just feels it's like there's a white dress in Trunk, and that's what we need to get. And they can't do it without the dress. It's like they cannot do it. And I'm like, why can't we do it without the dress?
Feels like this is a setup. This is a setup.
And then they're like, okay, we can make the crown, we can do all this, and like in this chapter, they get everything prepped, basically. And then there was a little thing, another kind of much like Barn Cat moment that I sometimes feel like American Girl does, where I feel like they're trying to teach you something subtly, where they're talking about making the crown for Kirsten, and they make one that's like too small, and they make one that's too big, and then Miss Winston says, oh, why don't you take a string and measure Kirsten's head, and then make it based off that. It just felt so detailed that I wonder if that's something that they put in there to kind of teach girls how to do things, you know?
Okay, I agree with you there. And I was going to say this part of the book was the first part where I was like, oh, we're like expanding on the concept of a scene here, because this was the first time in the 3 books that we've read so far that I was like, oh, this is still going on. Like, I thought they were going to be like, yep, let's make a crown. And then the chapter would be over. And then we were like in the room making the crown. And I was like, and iterating on the crown. This wasn't like they made the crown and it was done and then we have to hide it. It was like, let's iterate. So I will say there's a little bit more depth for me. So I agree with you. I feel like I learned something and I feel like we're evolving.
And yet in the
expanding.
same chapter, we never saw the struggle of putting a dress on a cat. So comes and goes.
And, you gotta pick your battles. You gotta pick your clarity.
But yeah, so basically this chapter is all about oh, do we find out the horse's name in this chapter?
No, I think I put this in the wrong section. That
Okay.
note.
Well, we're getting to it in the next chapter, and we're just gonna go right in because we both felt the same way. The horse's name is Blackie, and it just feels
It feels bad. It feels bad even in the time range. It feels bad regardless, but even knowing when these books were coming out, I'm like, are we sure?
it just feels like if it's a black horse, sure. We couldn't name it Midnight. We couldn't do something. We couldn't give it a Swedish name.
There's a lot of other words for black,
It just it feels weird, and we're gonna have to keep saying it. So we just wanted to get ahead of Blackie the horse. It just, and I know we're being slightly sensitive in a way that's like, oh, why do you guys care so much about Blackie? But it just
It feels
felt weird. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh.
It's just kind of
Ooh.
like when you go back to something from your childhood and it's just off color enough that you are given pause when you see it.
Like in Peter Pan, the "What Makes the Red Man Red" song, and you're like,
Yes.
huh?
And you're like, oh, that's not good.
You're like, ooh, this was a bygone era. This was a different time for us, and that's how we feel about Blackie. But rest assured, Blackie is a giant part of the rest of this book because
Of course.
Papa finally relents in chapter 3 to town at last, and he most likely because he can't think of any more excuses, and he has nothing to do that day, and he's thinking, well, she's gonna see me not doing anything today, so we might as well go into town on the brink of a snowstorm and go get the trunk back. So he offers to go get Trunk, and Kirsten, not trusting Papa enough, decides, I'm going with you. Can I skip school today? And their parents are like, yeah, you know what? You can skip school today. You can go. I think they said it's 10 miles on horse.
Yeah. I have to be honest with you. I think Mama did this because she did not want that girl in the house anymore. I just know she was like, this can be Papa's problem for the next 12 hours.
Do you think this is Mama's punishment for Papa not picking up Trunk sooner?
Yeah, just generally Papa's punishment. You've been taking so long. The snow is coming maybe soon. And I just want a girl stay in the house. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, I kind of agree because Papa doesn't really want Kirsten to come, but Mama greenlights it. And so she packs some little lunches and little hot stones for their tootsies.
Also, I will say, you know, Kirsten is literally still learning a second language. She is still 8. I don't feel like she should be missing school. We already learned about how shot their school system is. Feels like she should be going. So,
And she wasn't that good at school, if we can be honest.
no. And we haven't seen any proof that she's improved at all. Just to be clear.
Except the guy at the store, when they get there, tells her, hey, your English is better than when you literally got off the boat in Sweden.
When you didn't know anything.
He's like, hey, you said hello? Last time you didn't even know that. Your English is great, Kirsten. And she's proud of herself a little bit. He gives her a little candy. And I don't know why, but I always think the concept of candy in like pioneer times and stuff like that, it just kind of fascinates me a little bit because it reminds me of when I would play the Oregon Trail video game.
Yeah.
And you'd have to stock up at the general store.
Yeah.
And I would be able to buy candy. And I remember thinking, well, I think this will be a morale booster for my group if I buy everyone 45 pieces of candy. And then turns out candy is not a sustainable or practical thing to spend your money on when you're going on the Oregon Trail. And neither is 600 pounds of bacon.
But it was important that you followed your heart and made those purchases because that's what it's all about.
Well, that's the thing with that game. It was always hard to know, as a child who never grocery shopped before, how to properly grocery shop for people who would not see a grocery store in months. And did I know what went bad? Did I know that bacon rotted quickly? Did I know that we didn't have a refrigerator? I didn't think about that. So no.
Also,
So all we had was
like
candy.
it was an educational game, kind of, because I've played it again as an adult, and there are a lot of the original. There's a newer version that's much more complex and is still fun, but is much more complex gameplay. The OG, like, teaches you about the forts and stuff you were going to, but it's not giving you active, like, unless you're talking to everybody at every single stop, which people definitely weren't. You wouldn't learn how to, like, fix things that were wrong with your family, or if somebody got sick and you could actually do something to, like, cure it or, like, slowing down. Sometimes it'd be like, "You need to slow down. You need to go a little bit slower." But
I was like,
sometimes
no,
it'd
we
be
can't.
like, yeah, I'd be like, "Well, no, we're at a breakneck speed because we're falling behind. We're never gonna get to Oregon." The thing was, like, you would be fine because there was no way it was gonna take you that long unless you kept getting lost. Like, too long that it would get, like, cold again, depending on when you
My
left.
axles kept breaking, or my ox was
Same.
unyoked, whatever that means. I still don't know what that means, but I know it's not good.
It's the thing on, like, their shoulder, the way that it's put on them when you yoke an ox.
Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah, it has to do with the way they're, like, harnessed up. But there's also the
Mhm.
yoke of a wagon, which is the long strip under
Yeah.
it that can, like, crack in.
And I was a child trying to learn this, much like Kirsten's a child, you know? But
And
I
she
was the
doesn't
same age
learn
as
anything.
Kirsten, and she doesn't know anything. She's not even going to
We
school.
were playing video games, and she was, traipsing out into a snowstorm.
Well, and then this whole chapter 2 just kind of brings back so they arrived in Minnesota in July,
Mhm.
and I kind of assumed that they were gonna leave the trunk for, like, a month because Uncle
Yes.
Olaf has a wagon. So, I thought they were gonna go back pretty quickly because they had July, they had August, they had September, they had October, they had November, they had December. They had all these months when they weren't winterizing the farm,
Yes.
to go and get Trunk when the roads were clear, when it was nice out, and they did not go and get Trunk.
No.
And I get Kirsten's frustration, and I don't understand why they didn't do it, because now they're leaving the store, and Mr. Burkhoff is like, "You sure you don't wanna stay? That storm's looking pretty bad." And they're like, "Nope, we're gonna go."
Bye, before it gets any worse, we're gonna leave right now. It's like when you jinx yourself if you're driving yourself home in a rainstorm, and you're like, "Oh, there's a lull, there's a break, I'll go right now." It's always a trap. You're
Yes.
definitely just gonna get stuck in a somehow worse torrential downpour at,
Downpour.
like, the worst part of the highway. Yeah.
And that's what happens. The next chapter, chapter 4, is Braving the Blizzard, and it quickly escalates, and one of my favorite things about this chapter was there was a picture of the blizzard that was literally just a picture of, like, a white page.
Yes, I similarly wrote, loving the blizzard art that's basically a horse with crayon over it. It's like, you know when you were young and you would have, like, art class and you would take a white sheet of paper and then maybe you would draw, like, something little and you would think you're the funniest fucking person ever because you'd be like, "It's a polar bear in a snowstorm," or you'd be like, "It's like a whatever animal of your choice." That is how I felt about this drawing. I just know the artist was like, "Okay, here we go. Easiest
I think it
paycheck."
was a tight deadline day.
Yeah, that's the one you phone in at 11 PM. You've come home from drinking with your friends, and you're like,
Like,
"Ah."
oh, oh, shit, I forgot that we had that art due, and they were just like, you know what, like,
"Oh, thank
a
God it's a
blizzard?"
blizzard."
They're like, "I'm just gonna
Woof.
draw one braid and Blackie and send it off." Be like, "Good enough."
Blackie is the most prominent part of this white photo.
And yeah, and so Papa and Kirsten are tossing things off the wagon because it's weighing Blackie down, and Kirsten's first thought is, "We better not toss Trunk off this wagon because I will be staying here with it."
She's
And
like, "I
so they're
will die for that doll."
yeah, one, they haven't even let her get Sorry out of the trunk yet, which I don't know why. Oh, like, she was begging, like, "Can we please open it up?" And he's like, "No, we just gotta go." So, Sorry is still deep in trunk. Storm's getting worse. Papa decides that Blackie needs someone to lead him, so he gets off the wagon, and Kirsten's driving the wagon, little girl with, like, brains, and then Papa, like, twists his knee.
He's very dramatic. I was like, "Oh, so Papa's dead. So Papa's not making it home." He is like, "It's over. I can't do it." And I was like, "Lean on the horse."
Ride the horse.
Yeah, okay, there is a critical thing that happens in this where I was like, "Leave the sled with your belongings on it, untether the horse, ride the horse."
No, we can't leave drunk.
Well, but we could go back for trunk after snow.
We can't leave drunk.
Okay, so we're not leaving Trunk.
And so Papa twists his like knee, which whatever that means. He can't cope. I don't think he broke his knee. I don't think he's severely injured, but he's like owied his knee, and
But
he's
he's
like, I can't
losing
do
it.
this, Kirsten.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go sit on the wagon, and you, my 4-foot-tall child, must lead us with your strong heart. Which this is gonna be something I think that when Kirsten's older is a real sticking point with her dad, is that he kind of manipulates people by saying that their heart is strong whenever they don't want to do things. And he's
Yeah.
always calling people's hearts strong. And I feel like it's kind of
In physically involved situations, which is what I think bothers me the most. Because doesn't he say it about her mom when her mom is sick?
mhm.
Mama has a strong heart. Okay, but if her body can't fight the disease or the seasickness, she will be ill. She will remain ill. That's not going to fix it. An emotional core or strong emotional core is not going to save me from a physical plight I have to deal with.
Well, and it's also just, I don't know, it feels like one of those things that you say to someone to make them not complain or make them suck it up a little bit because you're
Yeah.
telling them how strong they are and how much you admire their coping when they're uncomfortable. And it's like, now I can't complain. So he tells Kirsten she has a strong heart. And that little girl does have a strong heart because she gets up and starts leading them around. And so basically, Kirsten recognizes like a tree and I was like, oh my God, this is great. We're on the edge of a cliff. And I'm thinking that doesn't seem like a great place to be with a turned around horse and a wayward carriage. But Kirsten recognizes it because Singing Bird took her there. And so she knows that she's near kind of like a cave setup that they can hang out in, which still does feel like quite a bit of orienting, honestly, in a blizzard. But I'm
Yeah.
willing to let it go. My biggest complaint of this chapter was that the connection to Singing Bird helped them find shelter when I was hoping the ghost of Marta would help them find shelter.
That's fair. That's fair. We all miss Marta. Maybe she'll come back on Kirsten's birthday.
I just feel, yeah, that'd be fun if little ghost Marta came to celebrate with her.
I will say, I like that. Singing Bird. I enjoy that once they're in the K-pop was like, how the hell did you know this? And I like that she was like, just like wandering down the stream.
And Papa's like, you're not supposed to wander over here, but glad you did.
I know. He like backtrack. He's like, how dare you, sternly. And then he kind of backtracks immediately and he's like, that said, we're alive. So kudos, my child.
And then they sleep in the cave, and for some reason I couldn't stop thinking about Uncrustables.
Yeah, like the sandwiches.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I think because Kirsten eats like a candy in the cave, and I was thinking this is like perfect situation to have an Uncrustable. Like, you know, if they'd brought them with them,
Yeah.
they could have
I will
some
say-
sandwiches.
I think it was rude she didn't offer Papa any of the candy. I mean, I'm sure it was small. It did say it was bell-shaped, but I was like, she can like bit into it. It didn't say it was a hard
I wouldn't
bit.
offer Papa candy, honestly. He put us in this situation.
Sure, she is 8. So she's probably like, I'm starving and I might never eat again. So this is my candy. And Papa doesn't deserve any.
Yeah, I also agree that Papa doesn't deserve any candy.
Sound off in the comments. Did Papa deserve some candy?
Look, this man delayed for months doing something he should have done week 2 of moving back to Minnesota, getting their belongings. This isn't a trunk that has nothing in it. This is a giant, heavy trunk with all their belongings
This
in
is
it.
the trunk.
This has everything, and he didn't do it, and God knows why. I don't think show me a day that Papa was so busy for the past 7 months that he couldn't have taken like a nice, pretty easy ride in the beautiful fall time to go pick up trunk.
Well, Caroline, it wasn't, this is just typical man behavior. Okay. His projects were important. If he wanted to, he would have, and he didn't. And I think that behavior shows a lot about his character.
Remember that, ladies. If you're dating a man or you have a man in your life and he will not go pick up your trunk, then
Get
think
rid of
about
him.
that.
Get rid of him.
Think
Trunk
about
is
what
important.
that says.
That trunk is how he's going to treat your marriage.
And I've always said that.
And I've always said that.
All right, so they're in the cave, they go to bed, and they wake up in chapter 5, which has maybe the worst name so far, Silent Night, Lucia Night. They wake up in the cave and the storm has passed, and so it's like pitch black outside, but they decide this is now the time to go home. So they hitch up Blackie again, they get into the wagon, and they can kind of see their way now, so they head on home. And of course, everyone's been waiting out for them because a disastrous storm has come and they didn't come home, and it's around 4 a.m., I think is what we kind of gather from it. So everyone is scared shitless that they've died in the storm right before the holidays. What a terrible way to start your new life in America. Your daughter and your angry husband disappear into a blizzard, fall off a cliff that you didn't even know was there. But luckily they come back. And upon their arrival, everyone's like, you're so brave, Kirsten. And Kirsten's first thought is, open that trunk. Get that trunk open for me. And she's reunited with real Sorry. So now little Sorry, gotta go. And everyone's excited. Mama's looking at all her belongings. Kirsten steals the little white dress in the background. And they decide, you know what we're going to do right now? We're going to do this St. Lucia's Day thing. And so the girls kind of run around the background. And the whole time they're doing this, I'm thinking, Mama and Aunt Inga must be bone tired right now. They must be. They've been up all night.
Yep.
Like,
worried.
Scared. And now they have to pretend that, like, they want to do this St. Lucia's Day thing. Now they have to be like, oh, yay. Like, we're going to stay up for another 3 hours and eat
hang
croissants.
out. Mm-hmm.
And Kirsten's so, like, tickled with herself for doing this. And she has everyone close their eyes, which, again, if I was up at 4 a.m. because my child didn't come home and then all of a sudden we're doing this whole little charade, I'd be like, can we just, like, let's do it in the middle of the
mind
day.
on you.
I'm so tired.
4 p.m.
I'm like, Mama didn't even make coffee, I'm sure, which was one of the main features of St. Lucia's Day. But Kirsten wears her little hat, and everyone is excited, and everyone is happy, and everyone says this is the best Christmas ever. And for some reason, I did tear up because I was thinking about how, like, beautiful it is that Kirsten how beautiful it was that Kirsten got to bring a tradition back, and it was kind of like they were back home. I don't know why that really just got me for a moment. And then she eats potato soup, and I thought that sounded really yummy.
That does sound really yummy.
So we have Trunk back.
That's right. Which means,
and really,
most importantly,
there's no more point to these books, honestly.
Well, that's true. Because Doll is so back. Sorry is so back.
Sorry's her only friend. We've got her back. Trunk
but now
is back.
She can be a normal little girl with her cousins and not have Bag of Beans as friends.
I know. Do you think this is going to change Kirsten?
Yeah, I think now she can have literally any other interest going forward. The world's her oyster.
I know, but every book we've read has been about Trunk not being there and kind of about her, like, her not having Sorry. And so now that she has Sorry, which is funny because this is kind of, I guess, the plights of a child. This is your biggest thing, that you don't have your doll back.
I respect it,
one of your friends died of cholera, and the other friend had to leave because of manifest destiny. And your biggest concern is your dolls.
She's just like us.
What did you ignore in your childhood that was traumatic?
Well, that seems like too much to share on the 3rd episode of this podcast.
I did want to briefly touch on the peek into the past, because they didn't bring up that there is, like, a Swedish goblin named Jultomten, I think is how you say it. And I'm probably wrong because I didn't look it up. But that was kind of my guess of what it's supposed to be. But he, like, would leave people clues and, like, puzzles.
Oh.
And you would be able to find puzzles and riddles in order to gain your practical gift.
I do like that. Mysteries to solve.
So, yeah, you have to solve a mystery to get, like, a pair of mittens. And
I might do that to all my friends this Christmas.
Yeah, and I kind of like that, and I kind of wondered why we didn't bring up that legend at all. We just talked about
I would have
Saint
loved
Lucia.
to see Kirsten's handle of that.
I would have loved to see one of those weird pictures they have in the tiny corners, that are obviously done by different artists.
Yep.
Like every page is a different artist rendering of a tiny picture. I would have loved to see them draw a goblin man.
Real. I agree with you.
Do you think it was too scary?
Yeah, I think that they're like all in on just the positive vibes. So minus like the near-death experience and your friend dying. But the rest of it, it's like, that's like spooky. This is like fun and real life scary. So he doesn't fit the bill.
I know, and they didn't even describe the part of St. Lucia that I allegedly think is true. So think about that.
I know.
So we wrap up another Kirsten story, and what did you think of it? How do we feel about Kirsten?
I like her better now. I'm excited to see what sort of life she's going to live now that Sari's back home. Maybe she can be more one of the girls. I think her birthday is next, so I'm excited to see what 9 does for her. Her confidence, her sense of self, her ability to have fun with doll.
No, I agree. I think she had a little bit more of a personality in this book, whether it was because she just really locked in on getting Trunk back or the bravery aspect of it for her. But it did feel more like, I don't know, the first 2 just kind of felt a little bit like, here's the beats of what a story should be. And it
Yes.
felt a little bit like Kirsten was incredibly passive, I guess. Things just kept happening to her
She-
almost.
Yes. They didn't feel like her story. I felt like I was reading a book about Kirsten versus the other 2 felt like if you were telling me about your friend and things happening to her, if that makes sense. I felt much more in her interpersonal world versus it felt a lot more high level in Meet Kirsten and Kirsten Learns a Lesson.
Yeah, I think she felt more like a active protagonist, I guess. In this one, it felt more like she had her own, like, I guess, like in the first 2, what are her goals and desires? As much as I'm making fun of the whole trunk thing, like, that is her goal in this book, is to get the trunk back. And in Kirsten Learns a Lesson, it was like her goal was to avoid speaking English and run away with Singing Bird because she was maybe in love with her, you know?
Yeah. She was exploring the flights of fancy of youth.
I think maybe too, this book had just, I feel like, a more clear track of what it was trying to do. It had one plot, you know?
It did feel a lot clearer the direction we were going. And perhaps this will feel reflective in the other American Girl Doll books that once we switch to another girl in the future. I have wondered a little bit if it will feel similarly stilted in the other, like, core original girls, right? Like the other ones that are listed in this book's directory. Like, I wonder if 1 and 2 will feel similar for the next couple girls, or if they will have more hit their stride and it will be a little clearer the goals that these girls have and why we care about them and why we care about the historical context they exist in. Versus this one, I do feel, not to judge her, I understand that it is more of an immigrant story than anything else, versus I feel like a lot of the other historical dolls are living through specific incidents in history. Maybe I'm wrong. You might know better than I. But from my memory, some of them were living a little bit more clearly in like a time period of American history where like major events are happening at least sometime near them. So their worldview is being shaped through that. Versus Kirsten, it feels a little bit more like and I think this is kind of the reason of American Girl, it's just a girl's story at a time in history. She was an immigrant at this time in history in Minnesota. And like maybe her life would have just been like this level of like mundane, and her world would have felt this big and also small. Questions to ask ourselves.
No, I think you're right. I think the only one I can think of that's kind of not placed in a specific historical event, like Felicity is Revolutionary War, Addie's Civil War, Molly's World War II, Kit is Great Depression. Samantha is just kind of turn of the century girl.
Interesting.
So she's
Okay.
1912. She's not on the Titanic, so that's not anything interesting. But
Could
she
you
is
imagine?
she is kind of another one, and that's also interesting because I think she's one of the first dolls too. I think we're covering her next, actually.
Yeah, I think she's
So
next in line.
yeah. So I think but I think maybe Samantha has the added bonus of being 1912, which means there's higher records of what happened during that time. so they can
100%.
kind of like I remember in that book they talk about the suffragette movement a lot.
Mhm.
Because her aunt is like a newfangled woman who like believes in rights. America vote.
Foolish. Uh,
But she yeah. But we don't know when it's coming out, so who knows what's happening. Yeah. But she kind of had the same tone. But I guess, like, yeah, I think Pioneer like, I remember reading the Laura Ingalls books, and they were kind of boring. Like, I know a lot of people like them, but I was kind of they were
yeah,
never
but
my
think of
favorite in the same way.
fun fact, I've been to the Laura Ingalls Wilder house that's in
Ah.
there's one of them is in Minnesota also, actually. Um, no, it is similar because I think at the end of the day, I think I accidentally stumbled into my thesis, which is the point of Laura Ingalls Wilder and then a Kirsten type of story is just exploring the idea of, like, American settlement, right? And the small but, like, interpersonal dynamics. Honestly, she has a lot in common with the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. It very much is like, I love my papa, he's a big strapping fellow. My mama takes care of things. My siblings and I run around in the fields, and the only things that change in her life are when outsiders come in and then kind of change or influence her worldview. But she lives in a very insular, small world until she moves, right? Until they change houses, until they move and she gets a little older and she goes out on her own. It is just about the day to day, the small in your life. But I think it is hard to maybe keep a child's and an adult woman's interest when you're just talking about, like, and then I went to school and I learned a thing, but I don't like my teacher.
I definitely think that, like, I think there's a reason. And look, I do enjoy Kirsten. She's a good kid. But I
Hmm.
do think there's a reason that she's like the one of the least popular of the dolls.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
we were both blown away by how much more exciting this book was. And
Yes.
in terms of books being exciting, I wouldn't say it's like, wow, that was a real riveting tale.
You were like, oh, it's slightly more interesting now. I think I'm looking up right now as we're talking. I also think she has a minimal amount of, like, accessories as well as, like, the new, like, dolls of the year get, like, entire like, entire mini apartments worth of accessories to go with them. Like, the doll that was a gymnast had, like, a whole gym set and, like, an uneven bars and, like, a tumbling
That's so
mat.
cool.
It's very cool. But, like, Kirsten, I'm looking right now. The only things you can buy of her, she doesn't even have an extension pack. She just has an 18-inch doll. She's a mini doll that's just her, but small.
No, that's sorry.
That's
That doll is sorry.
no, girl, that doll is her.
You think so?
No, oh, I it's what it says. It's Kirsten Larson mini doll and book. It's
Oh.
just her. Yeah, it's just her without her bonnet. Her little doll does not have a bonnet. Then you can buy Everything I Need to Know I Learned from American Girl book. Being a girl is great.
You
And
can buy a
then,
wooden bench.
yeah, some vinyl stickers and a hot and cold tumbler.
Oh, you can buy her a little bed, I think.
Well, wait, is it her bed specifically
I can't
or
tell.
just a wooden bed?
It's a wooden bed. I remember my neighbor had Felicity's bed, and it was so pretty. It has like a canopy bed, and I was like, "Mom, can I
Oh,
have a canopy bed?" And my mom was like, "No,"
damn.
because she
I
was
wanted
smarter
a
than I was.
I got a day bed. That was what I wanted for the longest time. I didn't get it till college though, and I think I only used it for like 2 years because then I was like, I'm a giant woman. Why do I have a twin day bed as a 20-something-year-old? So now I have a queen. But okay, I will say, oh, okay, wait, hang on. This might be a spoiler, so I'm not gonna read anything about it. Um, but you could previously purchase Kirsten's birthday outfit.
Oh, she wears like a pretty pink dress, doesn't she, or something?
Yes, and she has little daisies on her head and, like, a little headband.
She loves a
So,
crown.
I'm excited for this queen to get another crown somehow.
If nothing else, Kirsten is our most like hair conscious doll, I think.
That's true. Her hairstyling is very complex, and she has many different hair looks.
She has the most hair looks, I think.
I think you're right. I don't think any of the other ones really do anything different with her hair.
I know Samantha has a fabulous bow because she's a Victorian child.
That's true.
Or like a post-Victorian child. I remember, this is, if my mom hears this, she's going to be mad I said this, but my mom bought my sister, like, my sister had Samantha and I had Kit. And my sister had all these accessories for Samantha. She had her pajama set. She had Samantha's bed. And then she also had, I can see it in the picture we're looking at, just this like little wooden doll desk and chair that had a little heart in it that I think is just kind of generic American Girl doll, like desk branding. Yeah. And my sister got all this stuff. And I got Kit, which is also great. I love my Kit doll. But I didn't have any of the accessory, like I didn't have any of the swag accessories falling into it. And I don't know if that's one of those things where I just didn't ask for it and I assumed I would get it, and because I didn't ask, my mom just never got it. I do remember wondering why my sister had a match. She could match her doll in little pajamas and I couldn't. And I remember being like, this is the most tragic thing that's ever happened to me post 9/11.
Which you don't remember, barely.
Which I couldn't remember. So, but no, I think I don't know, we decided to do this in the order of the book, the way they were released, but I think we saw that Kirsten, Molly, and Samantha were all released the same year, so I don't know if lack of research or just our choosing made us do Kirsten first, or whether she was the first book actually written. But I do sometimes feel like when we're reading this that it is kind of like the test run of what these books are going to be and kind of how the series is going to go. I also do think that they all have different authors potentially, because
interesting.
Or there might be one or two. I mean, if we think about what we're talking about doing later with the Dear America books, so it's a series of authors writing those books, and I wouldn't be surprised if these all have a few, or there's 2 or 3 different authors who are writing the American Girl doll books, so it just might be like finding its voice.
Well, Ghostwriter Consortium.
Yeah, and I don't know, I think they're kind of finding their legs now. I'll be interested to see if the next book continues the trend with kind of feeling a little bit more active in the narrative than kind of just a passive. Yeah. This is because I think you said it in the one of the first 2 books that we did, where it felt kind of self-insert-y, like, oh, you're just a little blonde girl, here's a little blonde doll, and she doesn't really do much, but you can be her, you know?
But imagine it was you, lost and unable to speak English. Thoughts?
But you can't, because you do speak English, you know?
And you're reading this book.
But yeah, so the way we wrap this up is Kirsten has Sorry, the family has Trunk, and nothing will ever go wrong again for the Larsons.
Here's hoping.
But yeah, so this is kind of, I think, like, any other thoughts you have on Kirsten and her journey?
I'm excited to celebrate her birthday. That's all I can say.
Do you miss Marta or Singing Bird more?
I guess Singing Bird, because at this point, it seems like we need her skills back to keep that, like, our girl alive. Like, that girl at least had a survival skill she could pass on. At this point, I'm not convinced.
Marta clearly had no survival skills, considering she died.
It's tough. And that was completely her fault, if you think about it.
If you really think about it, she gave herself cholera.
Yeah.
What are your predictions for Kirsten?
I think she's going to get a cute little outfit. Spoiler alert. I think something bad is going to happen. That's going to make her think her birthday is going to go like unremembered. And then I think it's going to turn around in the best way in the last chapter of the book.
I think so too. I think Kirsten has a spring birthday.
Love.
And she's excited for it. But yeah, I think Papa probably has to like redo the fences, and that's taking up everyone's time. And Mama has to like bake a loaf.
Post-winter.
And that's taking up everyone's time.
Mama's gotta make a loaf.
And so Kirsten probably feels like no one's celebrating her birthday. I bet it's going to be like, we have been planning this all for you. Like, the loaves are for you. You know?
And she's going to be like, a loaf for me. And then they're going to make one for Sorry and be like, aren't you so glad your doll is back?
You know when your mom surprises you with a loaf.
Yeah. Every year on my birthday, my mom makes me a special plain piece of bread loaf. And nothing else.
And that's what moms are for at the end of the day.
And that's why I'm an
Loaf-making.
American girl.
All right. I think that's a good wrap for us on this episode. Thank you for listening. If you did, if you didn't, then fuck you.
How are
You
you
don't even
here?
hear this. Yeah. If you just listened to the last 30 seconds, then maybe
You
go
heard
back.
that.
Maybe find out what
Turn
happened.
back.
Yeah, find out what Kirsten's up to.
Brave the
She would love
blizzard.
you to know. Yeah, brave a blizzard. But thank you for listening today. If you like this podcast, subscribe to it, rate us 5 stars, leave us a cute little review in half English, half Swedish, or in kind of a broken English, like you're a little Swedish girl who's overconfident in her English skills after a few months of English school that's not really that good of a school.
Be cool.
If you didn't like it, don't leave us a review. We can't handle bad criticism, and it just doesn't really help us. It doesn't really help anyone else either, because everyone has their own opinions on things, and
That's so
your
true.
opinion's bad, and we can't help that. But yeah, follow us on social media, because I think Celia has set that up by this point, which means she hasn't done it right now, but by the time this airs, it will be set up.
That's right. By then, it'll be so there for you. And I'll record a new little tag, so it'll say what it is.
And it'll be full of gags and goofs. And you know what? You're just going to laugh along with
Memeable
us.
content for you to love.
And just relatable things about girls and about America. Because at the end of the day, we're just American girls. So, yeah, that's all we
Stay
have to
strong.
say today. Have a great day, and we will talk to you next time with Kirsten's, or with Happy Birthday, Kirsten. All right, bye-bye.
Och hon följer med en stad på en midnattsromans med feta